Before jumping into ES6 modules, I need to mention AMD and UMD so that you are familiar with them. Because of the difficulty with using CommonJS modules in the browser, others worked on different solutions. This was all happening before modules were introduced in vanilla JavaScript with ES6. AMD modules were a solution for browsers because they were loaded asynchronously. It stands for Asynchronous Module Definition. Here's some sample code that shows how you would go about working with AMD. Now, looking at this code, because AMD needed to handle things asynchronously, it's not the most intuitive code. But basically, the define method is used to define a module. This is the name given to a module, or the ID. And here are dependencies. So these could be other modules that we need to use with this module. And then this function defines the module. And this function needs to return that module, which is what we see here. So this is set up as an object. Inside of that, we have a method. And then that's what gets returned. So this function is passed into the define method. It allows it to use it as a callback, and that helps with loading this asynchronously. Now, in order to require a module, or in order to link to another module, they used require keyword for that. And here's how that would look. Let me just copy that in down below. So basically, this is what we're requiring. This is the module, and then this is the function that will work with that will use it. And so that gets imported, and then we're able to access, for example, this method off of that. So this is how you would set up the use of this. So obviously not as intuitive compared to CommonJS, but it allowed it to be loaded asynchronously, which was a help. Now, UMD, it stands for Universal Module Definition. And basically all it did was it became a way to marry both methods. So if you're using AMD or you're using CommonJS, UMD provided a format where you could set it up so it could check for either one, which one was supported, and it would use the one that was supported. So basically, it's at a high level, it's like checking using some if then else statements, which one you should use. Now, I also have some sample non-functional code to illustrate UMD as well. And this code, if neither AMD or UMD was supported, it would create a module similar to the traditional pattern that we looked at. So let me go ahead and copy that in. So as you can see, this also is not the simplest thing to decipher. But basically, it's an IFI. Here's where we're invoking it and passing in the property of this, whatever this represents in this context, and then a function. That function is going to be placed inside a factory. All right. So then we have these if statements. So if define equals a function and define.amd, that means AMD exists and that AMD is supported. And so then it uses this method here, define, gives it a module name, and then uses the factory function to define that module. If exports equal object, that means that CommonJS is supported. So module.exports equal to that factory function, whatever it returns. So you notice down here in this function we pass in, we're returning whatever we defined up here. Okay? And if neither of those exist, then it would attach the module to root, which, if this were a browser, root would be the window, because that gets passed in as the value of this right here and placed in root. And so then it would do something very similar to the traditional module pattern which we looked at. Now, I'm not doing exercises on CommonJS, AMD, UMD because we want to focus on ES6 modules, which we'll be doing in the next few topics. But it is important to be aware of them, to understand the type of code they use so that when you see them, you can recognize it and know what to attribute it to. So that is AMD, UMD. Let's now move on to the next topic.